My name is Tim Rainwater. I was on duty at the Columbia County Jail that night as the jailer. Ruth Sumlin came in. She had a knife and a small nickel-plated revolver in her right hand, and she said,
"All right, Rainwater, you know what I want. Get up and get him down. I don't want any stalling. I don't want to have to shoot you."
I was scared. She looked calm but determined. I got up from the desk.
He was moving a little bit slow, so I told him I was not playing and to go on up the stairs, and I followed him up.
When I got to the last door, Trustee Thurman Moore was standing there.
I saw Ruth bring Tim Rainwater upstairs at gunpoint, and Ruth made him unlock the cell.
They both followed me to the mechanism that unlocks all the cells. Thurman Moore reached in and pulled the lever, opening all the cells. Warren Sumlin then said, "Get in here." So I went into the cell, and they closed the door behind me.
When we all got outside, I spent 3 or 4 minutes looking for the keys. Well, they were in my bosom. I learned that from my mother. That's where she put everything, in her bosom.
Warren told me to drive the car. It was a green Pontiac. I knew it was Shorty's car. Me, Warren Sumlin, Ruth, and Jackie Moore got in that car. We sure didn't know we was riding in a dead man's car at the time.
Welcome back to the Coroner's Report. I'm Steve Navoychek, and I was the coroner of 2 of the largest counties in Arkansas and served as the director of the State Crime Lab. My partner, Tracy Carrington, and I have been reviewing old cases. This one was suggested to us by investigating officer, retired Arkansas State Police Trooper David Hendershott. It's just a story that sticks with you. As we told you in the first part of this episode, Ruth Sumlin was a good girl. Well, until she wasn't.
This episode utilizes our prison interviews with Ruth Sumlin from today, as well as her words from letters found during the investigation. The words from those letters have been voiced by a voice actress. Now, remember, Ruth was a college student at the time, the first in her family to go to college. And she was voted most likely to succeed in high school. But sadly, that's not what happened.
This entire story is crazy as a shithouse rat. After she was captured, police found a partial letter from Ruth in a paperback book she was reading. The letter was written to Warren after their arrest and recounts what happened the day of the murder. This is what Ruth had to say in that letter.
Shorty came to my house. Remember I told you he gossips like a woman? He was mad because my friend was starting a lot of shit. All of this made me mad as hell. Shorty was trying to claim me and drag me into shit. So I told him I was married and was not going to be messed up in silly shit. My husband would not like it. Shorty kept bugging me to go to Walmart's and let him call my friends so I could tell them such and such.
Ruth went with Shorty Cooper to where else? Walmart.
Me and my friends? We all agreed Shorty Cooper should have kept his mouth shut. I asked Shorty if he wanted to talk to you up in the jail. He declined. I could never make him see that he was no secret to you. I was sick of Shorty, and I was hoping for a minute that he'd come and maybe you'd bawl him out.
Shorty Cooper again declined to go to the jail with Ruth.
So I walked on to the jail. I told Shorty to come pick me up at 3 p.m. Then, of course, you know I came up to the jail and talked to you until about 3:30 p.m. Remember? When I left you, I went on home. So right after I got there, Shorty came by. This was around 4 p.m. that evening.
Shorty and Ruth went to the state line because they lived in a county that prohibited liquor sales. Ruth stated they bought booze for Shorty's foreman at work. Then they stopped by that man's house and left a note for him on the door.
Then we went to his cousin's house. Her name is Christine. We stayed there a long time. He was drinking some of her booze. About 7 people were there besides him and I, so he dropped me off at the jail. I talked to you, remember, 'cause I didn't even have your food this time.
Christine Rose Watts gave the police a detailed statement. She told police that Ruth and Shorty Cooper came to her house and that Ruth had been there several times over the past few months. Ruth was wearing a dark pair of slacks and a flowered blouse. She fixed them something to eat, but Ruth didn't eat anything.
Christine told police that Ruth seemed restless and said several times to Shorty that they had to go.
Shorty continued to chat, and at one point he turned to Ruth and told her that if anyone messed with her, they would have to answer to him.
Christine told police that Ruth and Shorty left at about 7 p.m. that night in his Pontiac Bonneville, and they headed toward Lover's Lane, where Shorty Cooper's body was found the next day.
So when I was with the man, and he wanted sex and everything, and he said, where you want to go then? I said, I don't care, go in the woods. He was okay with that, and that's how we ended up in the woods.
Christine's husband, Willie Watts, told police that Shorty was pretty loaded when they left his house. Willie believed they left his house a bit earlier at 6:40 p.m. because he remembered looking at the clock.
Ruth said they went next to Shorty's half-sister's house on Ross Street, and then they went to have sex in the woods at about 9 p.m.
And then while I was doing his thing, I was just saying in my mind, well, I got to get up at about 10 o'clock. 10 o'clock, I got to do something by 10 o'clock. Then when it was about 20 minutes to 10, I did something. He kind of got teed at me. He got up and got out the car, and I had it in my purse, and I just kept standing up talking. He was at the back wheel, and I was standing up on the passenger side with my purse on top of the car, and I was just fidgeting, and I was saying stuff like, oh, where's this? Where's this? In my mind that whole day, I had to do that. By 10 o'clock that night, my whole mind kept telling me, this man knows what you planning to do. Because he knows what you're going to do. That's what was in my mind. And so I kept talking while I was saying, how can I get this gun out of this purse? So I would dig up in my purse like I was looking for some lipstick or something. And he was combing his hair. He wasn't paying me any attention. And I finally put my hand up in there, and I didn't know how to cock it. I was afraid it was going to make a sound. So I put my hand, I said, where is this? Where is that? And I just kept talking. And when I finally got up and it clicked, and the time I clicked it, I just pivoted, I guess you could say, and pulled the trigger. I didn't even aim. But somehow I hit it. When they talked about it at the trial, they said she hit a perfect shot. Two inches above the, left ear, right ear, I think. When he fell, I called his name. And he didn't say anything because he fell back like in some bushes, some little bushes, fell to the ground, and one of his feet went on the where the back wheel was. And I called his name, and he didn't say nothing. But I can tell you that if he had said something or grunted or something, just like I knew I would have shot my father, I would have shot him a second time. That was the state of my mind.
Today, Ruth says fear of Warren is what caused her to shoot Shorty.
I didn't really know how to relate to having a boyfriend or anything because of my background. People say, well, you just innocent or something. No, I'm not innocent. I own up to what I did. Of course, I didn't cut that man and all that. But find a pistol, and I was afraid of him. But at the same time, I was afraid to go home because he had psyched me out so much. I thought he would come down somehow, and all I could see him doing is just cutting up my brothers and my whole family. And that is no lie. That is what was in my mind. That's what kept me from going home. I don't know exactly how it happened, but that was in my mind. I might have gotten mentally ill somewhere along the line and not even know it.
David Hendershott was the lead investigator for the Arkansas State Police on the case, and he reveals many more details of the gruesome crime scene. Please note, his descriptions that follow are graphic in nature, and you may want to just skip ahead.
The day of the homicide, she made an appointment to have sex with Cooper, and they went out to the city dump out there, and they had sex, and she shot him, and she said, I got to get out and clean myself up. And she stepped outside and was cleaning herself up, and he stepped outside and was using the bathroom to clean it up. And she had a little .22 RG, which is a Saturday night special. It ain't much of a gun. And it shoots about half-time it don't. She shot him in the head with .22 RG, and he dropped. Well, she went over there, and she had just gotten in a horrible argument with Warren about her being in love with him. So she took her pocket knife out and was going to castrate him. And she didn't know how to castrate. I grew up on a farm, and I know how you castrate him. You cut the sack a little bit and let the testicles fall out. She didn't know what she was doing. And he'd been shot in the head. He wasn't dead yet. She went over, and she took her knife out, and she put her left foot on his right thigh, grabbed his ball sack and raised it up and just cored around the sack, about 3/4 the way around. Then she put both hands on it and pulled and stripped both his testicles and skinned his entire penis out. He was still alive. His capillary arteries were bleeding, so his heart was beating. Now, I don't know how much pain he was in because he had a bullet in the head. Then she gets in the car and runs over him. Now, this is a sweet little old girl. She took his balls to Warren and said, here, you accusing me of loving this son of a bitch. Here, let me show you what I got.
Castration usually involved in a murder is something that is highly personal in nature, and definitely something that sends a message or telegraphs a message to police officers and investigators, a psychological clue, so to speak. A psychological clue that has to deal with freeing a man of his coconuts.
Coconuts. So that's what we're calling this now?
In the letter that Ruth later wrote to Warren about the day of the murder, you could tell that she really didn't like Shorty much.
You know, Steve, there's people I don't like, but I don't go around cutting their balls off.
Well, you hadn't gone around cutting off anybody's balls yet.
Yet. Toward the end of the letter that Ruth wrote to Warren after the arrest, we learned a bit more about Ruth's feelings toward Shorty Cooper.
Or at least what she told Warren.
I couldn't stand that fool-ass motherfucker. Cooper is the type that wants recognition for whatever he does. He never lets you forget whatever he may do for you. You understand, don't you? He was free-hearted, but had to let everybody know what he did for you. Well, I'm sorry he's gone, but it bees. This is all sweetheart. P.S. I went into detail so you could catch the mood of it all.
Ruth left the scene where she killed Shorty and headed straight to the county lockup.
I was supposed to go back by the house and get the suitcase and stuff I had packed, but I didn't. I couldn't really drive good, and I couldn't drive in traffic, so I went the long way around so I could directly to the jail, so I didn't even get to get no suitcase or nothing that I had packed.
Sounds like she was running behind and didn't really have time to grab the suitcases and make it to the jail by 10 o'clock. She spent too much time with Shorty, the man she hated.
Her next move was just about as shocking. Now, other prisoners in the jail told police after the escape that they knew a jailbreak was coming. Donald Biddle told police after he was recaptured that none of this was a secret to the inmates. They all heard Ruth and Warren talking through the window at the jail almost every day. Biddle told police Warren instructed Ruth to get Shorty drunk and take his car. Ruth was worried that she couldn't get Shorty drunk enough, and Warren told her to steal that car the best way that she could. Then Ruth was to return to the jail and force the jailer to let everyone out.
Inmate Jackie Moore shared a cell with Warren Sumlin and knew the plan, but he wasn't sure it was actually going to happen.
On Thanksgiving night, Warren talked to Ruth twice and he told me she was ready and that we would be out tonight. The first time I knew it was really going to happen was when I saw Ruth bring the jailer up. I told them that I wanted to be dropped at the nearest airport. I was planning on using my money to buy a plane ticket to Michigan, where my mother lived.
When I got Shorty's car, I drove it to the back of the jail and parked it. I walked to the front door and hollered at Warren and said I was ready.
She must have shouted pretty loud because fellow inmate and escapee Donald Biddle heard, and Warren shouted back, "Do it now!"
It was about 10 p.m. Less than an hour had passed since Ruth was seen leaving with Shorty Cooper to go to the park on Lover's Lane.
Less than an hour to have sex and murder a man.
I went inside the jail with my knife in my left hand and a .22 pistol in my right. I told the jailer, Tim Rainwater, to get up and get the keys and let Warren out.
Today, Ruth's story hasn't changed much over the years. She still remembers.
When I went up there, I had a little pocket knife that I had bought for Warren, and I had a gun I had purchased. He was used to seeing me, come up there to visit my husband. I think I had gave him $20 to let me go up there to him a couple of times. So when he looked up and saw me, it wasn't no surprise. He said, "Hey, Ruth." Tim, I said, "I want you to go upstairs and let Warren out." And he said, "What?" I said, "I want you to go upstairs and let Warren out." And when I said that, I had the gun in one hand, and I had my purse over my shoulder, I think, and I had the little knife in the other hand. And I still remember his words. He looked at me, and he was kind of moving slow, shuffling. I didn't say speed it up. I told him to move it, Kim. He said, "I'm going," he said, "'cause I don't like pain." He opened the bars, and we went upstairs, and when we got up there, Warren was at the bullpen, and he told Tim to open the door, and he opened it, and Warren put Tim in there where he was, and he came out.
My name is Tim Rainwater. I was on duty at the Columbia County Jail that night as the jailer. A friend of mine, Billy Foster, came by and visited with me until about 9:40 p.m. At approximately 10 p.m., Ruth Sumlin came in. I was sitting behind the desk in the front office, and she had a knife in her left hand with a 4-inch blade on it and a small nickel-plated revolver in her right hand. And she said,
"All right, Rainwater, you know what I want. Get up and get him down. I don't want any stalling. I don't want to have to shoot you."
I was scared. She looked calm but determined. I got up from the desk. I reached into the top drawer to get the keys to the key box. We continued to the key box, which I unlocked and got the keys to upstairs.
He was moving a little bit slow, so I told him I was not playing and to go on up the stairs, and I followed him up.
I had to open 4 doors to get up to the jail where the prisoners were locked up.
Jail trustee, soon to be a jail escapee, Thurman Moore, knew exactly what was happening.
The jailbreak itself went down just like it was planned. Ruth came into the jail armed with a knife and a gun. I didn't see any blood on her clothes. I saw her bring the jailer upstairs and make him unlock the cell.
"Hurry up, quit stalling." I told him to open the cell where Warren was.
Tim Rainwater vividly described to police what happened next.
When I got to the last door, Trustee Thurman Moore was standing there. I opened the door and went inside. They both followed me to the mechanism that unlocks all the cells simultaneously. Thurman Moore reached in and pulled the lever, opening all the cells. Warren Sumlin then said, "Get in here." Sumlin lightly pushed me, so I went into the cell, and they closed the door behind me. I heard keys rattling and assumed the door was locked. I pushed on the door, but it didn't open.
I do not know who locked Tim Rainwater in the cell. I gave Warren both of the guns. One belonged to Shorty, and the .22 belonged to me.
Today, Ruth has kind things to say about Rainwater, the man she once held at gunpoint.
When they were at trial, they were trying to say that my husband was brutal to her, but he wasn't, and Tim didn't lie. That's what I appreciate about it. He did not lie. He said, "I didn't have anything against Ruth and Warren." He said, "I thought they were a nice couple."
David Hendershott, the lead investigator, also remembers the jailbreak.
She goes up there to the jailhouse and she takes the jailer hostage and she breaks everybody out. Some of them don't run. Some of them stay there in the jail.
I heard them running downstairs and someone, I'm not sure who it was trying to convince the girls to go.
Troy Briggs was the inmate trying to get the others to escape. Briggs went from cell to cell trying to encourage his girlfriend and a cousin to run. They all turned him down. As he was leaving, Warren told him that he was on his own and he could go wherever he wanted to go. Briggs walked out the front door of the jail, but his freedom didn't last long. He ended up getting picked up just a few hours later that night, walking down the highway.
Donald Biddle was also captured later that night, hiding in a closet at his girlfriend's house.
But their getaway was almost their undoing.
When I got outside, we spent maybe 3 or 4 minutes looking for the keys. Well, they were in my bosom. Learned that from my mother. That's where she put everything in her bosom. And out of habit, I had put them in my bosom, and we were panicking.
You know, you can't make this shit up. And this is the stuff that never really makes the paper.
It happens. Even in everyday life, losing your keys happens. Now, former jail trustee Thurman Moore was also making his getaway.
Warren told me to drive the car. It was a green Pontiac. It belonged to Shorty Cooper. That's the car that was at the jail when we left. Me, Warren Sumlin, Ruth, and Jackie Moore got in the car and headed south.
Then they ran off. Willie Dismuke and a girl came upstairs and asked if I needed help. I told them to call the city police and tell them that we have had a jailbreak. The next person I saw was Gordon Diffie of the city police.
I've always appreciated Tim Rainwater for just telling it like it happened. You know, don't make up anything.
Columbia County Sheriff Gordon Hunter was notified of the escape. He was quoted saying that Ruth had entered the front door of the jail with a .22 caliber pistol in one hand and a red-handled knife in the other.
Now remember, this was a red-handled knife because this knife ties this entire story together. You know, it has to be about the worst news any sheriff can hear in the middle of the night. Not only was it embarrassing, but he also had to be concerned that Warren Sumlin was out on the loose.
After all, he was wanted for murder in California.
The small jail was full that night. 5 people, including Warren Sumlin, escaped, but 5 others stayed behind. Some, like Otis Simpson, didn't even realize what was happening, like Otis at Mayberry.
I was drunk, and I laid down, and I just went to sleep. I didn't even know anything been happening till this morning when someone told me there'd been a jailbreak.
It's my turn to call bullshit on that one.
I agree. I don't know of many people that could sleep through a jailbreak. That morning, the print media across the state screamed headlines about the jailbreak.
A Columbia County Sheriff's Department spokesman said a woman armed with a pistol and a knife held jailer Tim Rainwater at gunpoint while he unlocked all cells. Rainwater was then locked into a cell. There were about 10 inmates in the cell, but only 5 left. One of the inmates went to the jailer's office and telephoned the Magnolia police to notify them of the escape.
The 3 escapees, jail trustee Thurman Moore, Jackie Moore, and the Sumlins jumped into Shorty Cooper's car to make their getaway.
David Hendershott, the lead investigator, remembers Ruth and Warren both had guns.
4 ran and got in this stolen car, and Ruth and Warren were in the back seat, and Ruth was behind the driver. Warren was on the passenger side, and the 2 other guys that broke out with them were in the front seat. They're driving down the road down there, and he had an old RG-22, but then the John, he had a gun in the car, and she got it, and it was another little 22. So Ruth was armed, and Warren was armed.
In a hurry to escape the police, their first stop was at the liquor store. Warren had found Shorty's wallet and had taken $35 out of it, enough to buy some booze.
He said, I'm not going to drink a beer. Then we went to this little side of the road. They stopped at this little place. And they went in, and I stayed in the car, just sat there. And when they came back out, they got in the car, went on up the road. They hadn't made any plans about where they were going to go. And so after a while, I was driving along. I kept hearing something crunching, and I figured out it was a sack. And I looked out and said, what did you get? And he had bought some beer.
In her statement to police from 1977, Ruth recalled where they went next.
We went by a back road south toward a friend's house. Once we got there, I called that friend and asked if we could all spend the night. He told me yes and said to meet him in a parking lot. We went to that parking lot and waited for quite some time, but he never showed up, so we left and headed toward Little Rock.
Now, Warren Sumlin, well, he was a drinker, and his personality would change on a dime when he had liquor.
In the past, several times when he drank half of a beer, it was a bad scene. One way or the other, I got it. Right then, something in me just knew something bad is going to happen.
Ruth told police after they were captured that Warren had been drinking heavily during the trip, and he was getting mean.
And to get ready for this, one of the men that was breaking out with him, the younger guy, he got in touch with his people, and they sent him some money. And he had his money rolled up and hid in his sock. And he had enough saved up that once the escape happened, he could get a plane flight.
At some point, Warren learned of Jackie Moore's sock money.
Because I knew he had drank and that things were going to get crazy. I was trying to tell the 2 boys, but I said, y'all go y'all way, we'll go our way, okay? And I was trying in my own way to get them to leave because he had already said that one of the boys had like $130 and he said, I'm going to get that money.
Warren decided to kill Jackie Moore for that money in his sock and to kill Thurman because, well, he would be a witness.
They get to Fordyce and they turn left to go to Little Rock. By this time now, it's getting dusky dark. Warren leans over and whispers to Ruth, hey, look, we ain't got no money. And that guy has got some money in his sock, and we need it. And says, we're going to have to get it, shoot these son of a bitches. You take the driver, and I'll take the passenger. On the count of 3, we'll shoot. So they stick the guns up there, right up the back of the head behind the seat where they couldn't see them. Warren counts to 3, and they pull the trigger.
Warren and Ruth devised a plan. Warren told Ruth to shoot Thurman at the same time he shot Jackie. His gun clicked several times, apparently misfiring. Then it fired, and then she fired her gun.
So when the car stopped, I put this gun on the back of his headrest and fired twice. He fired 2, but the dude that I fired, because I didn't know how to shoot, I didn't know to aim it up. Just aimed at his neck, so it just went in his neck. But he shot up, but his victim, it faded off his scalp. Both jumped out of the car and ran into the woods.
Well, yeah, I'd run off in the woods too if someone shot me in the head and neck.
But when she shot him, the little 22 shorts don't do a lot of damage. I've seen them hit the scalp, go into the scalp, and just run around the skull.
They almost took a knife to a gunfight because those little old guns are just garbage. Jackie Moore was shot in the head, and Thurman Moore Jr. was shot twice in the neck.
The driver jumps out and he takes off running down the road, and so does the other one. They both hit the woods hauling ass. Warren takes off after him, chasing him on foot, shooting at him with that little RD-22. Half the time they won't shoot, and them little old hollow point shorts don't kill nothing. Warren, he's wanting that money. He disappears in the dark.
Later, after he was captured, Thurman Moore told police what happened in that car.
Warren pulled out a gun and without any warning started shooting at me. I got shot twice in the neck and would have gotten shot more, but his gun kept snapping. I was still driving the car when I was shot. I pulled the car off on the side of the highway and jumped out running into the woods. I saw a car coming and I tried to wave it down, but that's when Warren started shooting at me again, yelling to get in the woods.
Thurman Moore was shot by Ruth, but at the time of his statement, he was in the ICU in Little Rock Hospital and apparently had no idea who had shot him.
The dude I shot, when the cops were asking him, telling him that I shot him, he said, no, she didn't. Ruth didn't shoot me. He didn't think I did, but I did. I shot him.
Luck was on Thurman Moore's side that night.
They did run. They ran out in the woods and made it back to Michigan. The one I shot, he went up a piece up the road running, but he fell. And I was told later that he was laying right there when my husband was kind of trotting down the road trying to find him. He was laying right at his feet. He just didn't see him.
Jackie Moore was also shot. Now, the craziest thing happened. Both men, Thurman and Jackie Moore, who were not related, took a bullet to the head and or neck, but were not incapacitated. The car came to a stop and both men opened their car doors and ran for their lives into the woods. Thurman would be quickly captured, but Jackie Moore wasn't captured until months later.
When I jumped from the car, I caught a ride with a trucker to Little Rock and caught a plane to Michigan, where I stayed with my mother until I was arrested.
So, as Warren is chasing after the two escapees with murderous intentions, Ruth, who could barely drive, was trying to turn Shorty Cooper's big Pontiac Bonneville around. If you remember, these cars were massive and very difficult to do a U-turn even on the highway.
Yeah, sort of like trying to drive a boat.
Yeah, they were about as big as the Titanic. They were land yachts for sure.
They really were. So Ruth decides to help her husband by getting behind the wheel of the car. Now, remember, she's not that skilled of a driver.
You got to go back where he is and then try and turn back around, kind of just gliding down in this little shallow ditch. That's how I ended up. I did that because I was really trying to turn around. I didn't have the sense. I should have just drove on in the car.
This is like the gang that couldn't shoot straight.
Well, they could shoot.
But that's about it. What a crazy story.
Hendershots always are, aren't they?
You can't make this shit up. If he had 357 Magnum, I'd have dead bodies all over.
Don't worry, the good Lord is getting ready to intervene.
Oh, but I don't think the good Lord had a damn thing to do with what happened next.
And Ruth is sitting there on the side of the road with her car stuck. Well, here comes the preacher. Here he comes back in his Cadillac, and he sees this young black woman stuck on the side of the road. And he decides he'll be a good Samaritan. He'll help. So he pulls over and asks her if she can help her. He says, yeah, I'm stuck. I need some help getting out. And they're sitting there talking about what to do next. And Warren comes walking back. And he says, what the hell's going on? She said, well, this preacher's offered to help us out here. And he said, screw him. We'll just take his friggin' car. So Warren pulls down on the preacher, and he's going to rob him. And the preacher takes off running to the woods. Warren shoots him in the ass.
Those good Samaritans were George Smith and Robert Thrower, and they would later explain to the police what happened.
Me and my cousin were traveling south on Highway 167 when we noticed a young black girl trying to get her car out of the ditch. We stopped to help, but it was real stuck. I told the girl we could take my car to town and call a wrecker.
The girl said, I'm cold. Could I get in your car? Then the man came out of the woods and said, get down. I refused, so he said, get in the bushes. I started toward the woods, and that's when he shot at me 3 or 4 times.
I was standing near her vehicle, still stuck in the ditch, when I heard gunfire. I ran for my car, and that's when I seen Warren Sumlin with a pistol. He ordered me to give him my billfold, which I did. Then he told me to run for the woods. As I turned to do just that, Sumlin shot me in the buttocks. I ran into the woods with my cousin.
He was telling them, get in the woods, and he was shooting down at their feet or something, but one of them, I think, got shot in the booty.
The Sumlins jumped into George Smith's car and took off. Meanwhile, George and Robert were in fear for their lives, but they weren't alone.
We noticed another man crossing the highway further down from where we were hiding. It was former jail trustee Thurman Moore. It was obvious he had been shot, but we never saw him again after he crossed the road.
They shot the preacher He runs off in the woods, and they take his car, and they head to Little Rock. The preacher comes out of the wood after they leave, flags down a trucker, and the trucker's on the CB radio, and he calls the Fordyce Police Department. So they send the deputy sheriff out there, and they send the ambulance out there. This black police officer, he is interviewing the preacher about what happened. And he said, well, I stopped to help this young lady that was stuck in the ditch, and this guy come walking out of the woods, tried to hold me up. I ran, and he shot me in the butt, and said they stole my car, and they took off toward Little Rock. Well, Warren gets about 10 miles down the road down there, and he tells Ruth, said, stop, turn around, and go back. She said, what are you talking about? She said, he's going to tell the cops which way we went. There's only one road going toward Little Rock this way. We'll turn around and make a U-turn, and we'll go toward Pine Bluff. And so she turns around. But when they get back down to the crime scene, there's all the records. There's the police, the ambulance, and all this other kind of stuff. And the preacher's out there, he's talking to this police officer. And he's saying, this guy come out of the wood, and he tried to rob me, and he shot me in the ass when I run off, and said he stole my car, and he went, and there's my car right there. Ruth stopped, and Warren told him to drive on, keep on. Maybe they won't pay no attention to us. And they drove right back through the crime scene with a cop there.
Did they think that George wouldn't recognize his own car?
The cop jumps into the police car, and I've got to give him credit. He did it right. He jumped in the police car, and they get in a high-speed chase. They go back to the four-way and turn left like they're going to Pine Bluff, and they get about 6 or 8 miles out of town. They're hauling ass and everything. And finally, they pull over, stop. And you got one police officer out there, and he's got 2 badasses in there, but he don't know that they've involved in these other killings. He don't know how bad a situation it is.
That's got to be a scary moment for any police officer, to know you have the suspects and then to have to get out of your own unit to arrest them.
A lot of police officers die doing just that, but it is their job.
Now remember, again, Ruth wasn't an experienced driver, and Warren had demanded that she drive, but she was just a hot mess.
Hot mess for driving? Hell, she's a hot mess all the way through this crazy story.
I can't really drive, and that was a fancy car, and I probably was going faster than I was driving. I can't drive except on a country road, so I knew I couldn't make it driving in the business district, and he said, Ruth, step on it when the cops got behind us. And I said, no, I'm pulling over. That is my pivotal moment right then. And I just said it without any fear, and I just stopped the car. Right then, the Lord saved my life.
Warren tells Ruth, she's driving, says, don't get out of the car. And the police officer stepped out of the car and got his 12-gauge shotgun and did not approach the car. And here's where he used his brain. Warren said, when he comes up here, I'm going to kill him. And the police officer gets on his PA system and says, all right, come out with your hands up, walk backwards toward me.
I could hear this cop saying, get out of the car with your hands up. He was a black dude.
Well, they didn't get out of the car. He repeated it a second time. They wouldn't get out of the car. Well, by this time, Ruth is getting scared. She's not a hard case like Warren.
And I could hear a lot of fear in his voice. He was saying, get out of the car, put your hands up.
She's getting scared, and the cop says, look, I'm not going to tell you but one more time, and I'm fixing to shoot. Get out of the damn car. So she gets out of the car, throws her hands up, and runs back to the police officer.
And I got out and tried it back where he was.
When she does that, Warren slides over into the driver's seat, guns it, and he takes off to Pine Bluff at 100 miles an hour. Fast as he go. Well, here the police officer is. He's got one in custody and one running, and he ain't got but one car, so he takes care of Ruth.
He put me in the back of his car with those little bands they put on your wrist.
And he's calling in a description on the suspect vehicle that just got away. And while he's talking on the radio, he looks up. Here comes Warren back at him head on. Warren runs into the police car. I don't know, 30, 40, 50 miles an hour. Did quite a bit of damage. Backs up and gets another run at it. And here he comes again. He's trying to disable the police officer to get Ruth back. So the second time he runs in the police car, the policeman was able to bail out with a shotgun and stick it in his face and put him under arrest.
I believe the Lord saved my life. I know he did.
Officer James Bell with the Fordyce Police Department gave a statement about what happened next.
That's when Warren Sumlin took off fishtailing and eventually turning around. He revved up the engine of that car several times and got it in drive gear. He rammed my police unit, knocking my car into the milk truck that had pulled up beside it. Mr. Sumlin kept trying to go forward with his vehicle. I ordered him out of the car. When he didn't comply, I fired a warning shot over his vehicle. Then, I went around to the passenger side of the car and ordered him out again. Mr. Sumlin stated that his leg was broken. That's when I handcuffed and placed him under arrest in the vehicle while the driver of the milk truck held the shotgun on the suspect.
He said, my leg, oh, my leg, my leg, my leg. But I knew instinctively he was saying that, but he was really fishing for a gun.
Ruth remained in the back seat of the police car until another unit arrived. Warren Sumlin was taken to the hospital. His leg wasn't broken after all, but he did have a little cut over his eye.
Former jail trustee Thurman Moore was more severely injured.
Well, he did take 2 bullets to the neck.
It wasn't much of a bullet, but Thurman remembered some important details that he told police from his ICU bed at the hospital.
Warren said he knew Shorty Cooper from Magnolia, but didn't know that Shorty was dead until the police told him. I told the officer I knew Shorty, and I knew Ruth had shot and castrated him, but I wasn't there when she did it, and I didn't know where the crime took place. I think Shorty was murdered by Ruth because she couldn't get him drunk enough to steal his damn car.
Meanwhile, the police were still looking for the other escapee, Jackie Moore, who had been shot and was last seen ducking into the woods on the side of the highway.
We got 2 people that had run off into the woods out there that had been shot, and one for sure that we can't find. When I interviewed him, I said, "Are you sure that you shot him?" And he said, "Yeah, I stuck it right up the back of his head and then went pop, so I assume I hit him." So we had people out there for 3 days looking for buzzards and trying to find bodies and couldn't find nothing. But what happened was he had gone around through the woods. He wasn't that hurt that bad. He did get shot in the head. And he went on up a mile or 2, and after everything settled down, he hitchhiked a ride from a trucker to Little Rock.
So that's how Jackie Moore ended up back in Michigan. After he was eventually tracked down months later, Jackie told police Ruth never said anything about Shorty when they escaped.
Within 4 hours, local law enforcement had all but one escapee back in custody, and the investigation began. In the middle of all the chaos of the murder, the jailbreak, and the chase, Ruth writes a letter to her mother that the police find later.
Just a letter to let you know it will probably be some time before you hear from me again. Warren and me are on the run. Just like Bonnie and Clyde, everybody will be after us. I broke him out of jail. Remember, I told you that if ever anyone tried to find out anything about me and Warren, not to tell them anything. So they will probably be down there thinking we would come down there. But I ain't that crazy. Don't mention Minnesota, Washington, Dallas, or Texarkana. If they want to know someplace, give them a false one, like Pennsylvania or anywhere that you are sure we have no kinfolks. So be careful in what you say. You can tell them we have folks in California, 'cause we won't be there either.
Ruth told her mother that the police might question not only family members, but old friends from high school. Then she reassured her mother that she was okay.
Don't worry about me and Warren. I can take care of myself pretty good. I hate to disgrace the Brewer name and make you all so ashamed of me.
She drew in a little smiley face after that statement.
But you know, I always was loony. I can't say where I'll be, but it may be some time before you hear from me. Course, they will probably try to secretly watch your mail, and if you had a phone, they would tap that too. See, in something like this, can't too many folks know, so that's why I'm not telling anyone.
Ruth even confessed to her mom.
If they say a man was killed, I killed him, not Warren. Just want you to know that Warren isn't making me do anything. I'm much worse than he is. That's why we get along so good. 2 crazy people. If we get caught, you'll hear about it. But we don't intend to get caught. Love, your daughter, Ruth D. Sumlin.
Ruth hasn't seen that letter since she wrote it, but she remembers what she said in the letter.
Yeah, I remember it was a stupid letter because I was going to write her a letter, and the one thing in it that made it look so bad is why I put a sentence in there. I said something like, "Don't worry about being warned," or something. I think I said, "I'm much worse than he."
Police worked through the night, not knowing that soon the jailbreak investigation would turn into a murder investigation. The call came in at 10:30 the next morning, and Columbia County Sheriff Gordon Hunter, along with Arkansas State Police David Hendershott, went to the scene to investigate.
This concludes part 2 of the coroner's report, Della Ruth Sumlin, for the love of a good woman. If you like our content, please remember to like and subscribe. And if you have questions, please reach out to us on our website at coronersreport.net or on any of our social media platforms. Special thanks to Ruth Sumlin and David Hendershott for sharing their memories. Thanks also to voice actors Chris Schaefer, Alan Prather, and Savvy Valentine. Copyright 2025 Aussie Grove Media Group, LLC.